This video is about noun clauses and the grammar related to that. It is made to help those of you who were absent last week and couldn't attend a class, but it doesn't mean that it's a better option. I mean, you have to attend your classes because when you're in the classroom, you can ask any questions that you have. So it's better to attend your classes and not rely on just videos because videos are not really as helpful as attending classes. Noun clauses are actually like sentences, and these sentences act as the subject or the object of a sentence. Yeah, I know it sounds complicated, but you'll understand it in a minute. I will try to show good examples to help you out with this issue. First, I'm going to start with questions that have do or does or did as the auxiliary verbs before the subject. This is very important to remember because sometimes do, does, and did can be the main verbs of the sentence. When I say do, does, and did as the auxiliary verbs, it means that these verbs are not the main verb, and they appear before the subject to form a question. Let's have an example. In this example, we have a question and it has do in it. As you can see, do is written with a different color to help you distinguish it. So, what do you like to eat? If you want to change it to a noun clause, first we have to get rid of this auxiliary verb. And that is always the same. When you have do, does, or did, you have to cross it out and you're good to go. And also the question mark. I mean, when we change a question into a noun clause, it's not a question anymore. So it is ridiculous to have a question mark at the end of a sentence. Then you have this, what you like to eat, and this is the noun clause. So what can we do with it? We can use it as the subject or the object of a new sentence. As you can see in this example, what you like to eat, which is in blue, is the subject of the new sentence. So what you like to eat is important. Let's do it again, but this time I'm going to use this noun clause as the object of the sentence. We have the same question, what do you like to eat? We get rid of the auxiliary verb and the question mark, and now we have the noun clause. And then in this new sentence, as you can see, the blue part is a noun clause, which is the object of the verb know. I want to know what you like to eat. Here is another example. This time we are going to work on does, which is a little bit different from do. Let's see what happens. First, as usual, we get rid of it and the question mark. But there's this third person singular s. We have to move it to the verb, and we have this, what she knows about our relationship. This is the noun clause that we have made out of the question. Now I've used this new noun clause as the subject of the new sentence. What she knows about our relationship scares me. Let's do it again. This time, I'm going to do the same thing. What does she know about our relationship? As usual, we get rid of the auxiliary verb and the question mark. Then we move s to the verb, and we end up with this noun clause. And we use it as the object of the sentence. The next example, where did she go for holidays? This time I'm going to use did, which is used for simple past. Again, as usual, we get rid of it and the question mark, but we have did, which means the sentence must be in the simple past tense. So we change the main verb, and we have where she went for holidays. So go changes to went because we do not have did anymore. That little guy did told us that this is a simple past tense. While we don't have it, when we get rid of it, there's nothing else to tell us that this is a kind of simple past sentence. That's why we have to change the main verb into simple past. And we have this, where she went on holiday made everyone curious. As you can see, this noun clause is used as the subject of the last sentence. Now, we can move on to questions with is, am, are, was, were, have, has, had as auxiliary verb before subject. These are like do, does, and did, but they follow a different kind of grammar when we want to change them from a question into a noun clause. You have to remember that all of them must appear before the subject when we have a question. Here is one example. How is she going to pass the exam? As you can see, is appears before the subject, she. And this is a question. What are we going to do here? It's very simple. First, we get rid of the question mark and we swap she and is. And then we end up with this noun clause, how she's going to pass the exam. And this is the final noun clause used as the subject of the new sentence. How she is going to pass the exam depends on her study plan. Let's do it again, but this time I'm going to use it in a different position in the final sentence. As I said, we remove the question mark and we swap the subject and auxiliary verbs positions. And then we make our noun clause, and in the final sentence, as you can see, the question has turned into a noun clause and it is used as the object of the verb know. So I don't know how she's going to pass the exam. Now we've got another example with are. Everything is the same. We get rid of the question mark, we swap the subject and the auxiliary verb. And we have the noun clause like this, how they are going to pass the exam. Now in this example, I have used this noun clause as the subject. How they are going to pass the exam depends on their study plan. Now let's do it again. Get rid of the question mark, swap the subject and auxiliary verb, and end up with this noun clause and use it as the object this time. So I know how they are going to pass the exam. Contains this noun clause. It is written in blue color, and it is used as the object of the verb know. Now, in this sentence, we have has as the auxiliary verb, and it is in present perfect tense. This is the same as is, am, are. The grammar for that is the same. So as usual, we get rid of the question mark, we swap the auxiliary verb and the subject, and we have this noun clause. Then, if we put it in this sentence, it is the object of the final sentence. I asked her why she has sold all her property. Here is another example. In this example, we have a question in past perfect continuous tense. What had they been doing when we arrived? Then as usual, we get rid of the question mark, we swap the auxiliary verb and the subject, and what they had been doing when we arrived is the noun clause we have. Now we can use it as the subject or the object of a new sentence, which in this case is used as the subject of the final sentence. What they had been doing when we arrived was the funniest thing in the world. They were fixing the LCD with a hammer. This is the same sentence. Let's do it again. Cross out the question mark, swap the auxiliary and the subject, and then we have this noun clause, what they had been doing when we arrived. And now we can use it as the object of the new sentence. You won't believe what they had been doing when we arrived. They were fixing the LCD with a hammer. Now we can switch to questions with modal auxiliary verbs like can, could, may, might, should, will, would, and shall. Modal auxiliary appears before the subject in a question. Here is an example. How can you keep your body healthy? This is a question, and as you can see, can appears before the subject you. We get rid of the question mark, we swap the subject and the modal verb, and we end up with this noun clause, how you can keep your body healthy. Now we can use it as either subject or the object of a new sentence. And here we go. This book teaches you how you can keep your body healthy. The blue part here is the noun clause that we just made. We have used it as the object of the verb teaches. Now, here we go again. We have the same example. Let's do it again. As you can see, we crossed out the question mark, we swapped the modal with the subject, and we have the same noun clause we had in the previous slide. And now, this time I've used this noun clause as the subject of the last sentence. How you can keep your body healthy must be the most important thing everybody should know about. How about yes, no questions? The questions that you've seen so far are all WH questions. It means that they all start with WH question words like what, when, how, why, and so on. Everything is pretty much the same with yes-no questions. The only difference is the word that we use at the beginning of noun clauses in yes-no questions. Let's see what they are. These are some examples of yes-no questions. As you can see, there's no WH question word at the beginning of them. Do you like to eat pizza? This is an example of a yes-no question. Let's turn it into a noun clause. We get rid of do, as we did, if you remember, in the first slides, and then the question mark, and we end up with this noun clause. But it doesn't sound quite right because this is not a noun clause. I mean, we can't use it directly like this, at least as a subject of the new sentence. So as you can see, this little guy is not happy with it. If you just add if or whether at the beginning of it, it is better, and it is the way we use it as the subject of a sentence or the object of a sentence. And now we have this. I told him if or whether you like to eat pizza. Here we go again, the same example. We get rid of do and question mark. You like to eat pizza. Then we have whether, and the guy's happy now. If you have noticed, I did not write if, and I'll tell you in a minute why. As you can see, this noun clause is used as the subject of the sentence. If you don't know what it means, just remember that it appears at the beginning of the sentence. And it means that the noun clause is the subject of the new sentence. It doesn't really sound natural to use if when the yes-no question turns into a noun clause and it is used as the subject of a sentence. What I mean is that if you start your noun clause with if at the beginning of the sentence, it would be mistaken for a conditional sentence. So it's better to use whether, and it is more natural to use whether or not. But or not is optional. As you can see, it appears in the parentheses. Whether or not you like to eat pizza does not change anything. We are going to buy one anyway. Now, what about statements? Statements are actually sentences, and they're not questions. They're not either WH questions or yes-no questions. Now here we have an example of a statement, or simply a sentence. This is a negative sentence. She doesn't want to study mathematics. The only thing we have to do is just add that to the beginning of this statement. Now we have a noun clause. And this is the final sentence. The blue part is actually the same noun clause we just made. Also, it is used as the object of the sentence. Actually, it is used as the object of the verb told. Now, the thing is that when the noun clause, like this, is the object of a sentence, you can omit that. And that is perfectly fine. And you can end up with this kind of sentence. She told her professor she doesn't want to study mathematics. That is absolutely optional. But you'd better use it because it prevents confusion. Now, here we go. We have the same sentence. She doesn't want to study mathematics. Again, we use that at the beginning of the statement to turn it into a noun clause. Now, in this example, that she doesn't like to study mathematics surprised her professor. The blue part is actually the same noun clause we just made, and it is used as the subject of the new sentence. But for many of you, this doesn't sound like a natural sentence. Many of you have had this problem with this kind of sentence before. We can do something simple to make it sound more natural. We add the fact. If you add the fact at the beginning of this noun clause, which is used as the subject of the final sentence, it would sound more natural to you. So, it is optional. You don't have to use it, but using it makes the sentence sound more natural to you. I hope this video was helpful. And now you can turn questions and statements into noun clauses and use them as the subject or the object of new sentences. You need to practice more and more to get a hang of it. Otherwise, you would have to think a lot when you're taking an exam. Remember, if you want to be successful on an exam, you have to practice as much as you can. Thank you for watching.